And Brandon, it is time to close out the podcast talking about the best team in the Pac-12 South from last year, and that is the USC Trojans. And the first thing we got to talk in this one is, what do you think of Sam Darnold in the start with the New York Jets? Did you see that game?
Nope, I don't watch preseason.
He looked pretty good. I watched it only because I have NFL Network. Like at this point, the preseason has started. So I have. Well, I was going to say I have it on loop. And all I've been doing is just watching these preseason games over and over and over and over. See, because all they're doing is just replaying them top to bottom.
So MLB
is taking over your life.
No.
Okay.
Preseason might be worse than NFL preseason because I think I maybe give less of a crap
about the MLB
for spring training. But the preseason, it's like whatever, especially for these first two games where like. The first game where no one I'm playing is doing anything.
Only
like
excited for the rookies.
When Dave texted for the first Bears game, and I know, sorry, we're getting off on it a little bit. Yeah, for the Hall of Fame game, and he goes, "Is it bad that I'm more interested to see how all the backups for the Bears do?" Yeah, Dave, that's bad. Why are you so boring? Who the hell would want to watch all of those dopes?
I'll be honest. I had fun yesterday watching the Pittsburgh Steelers backups and trying to figure out who's going to be the incumbent to Big Ben, which I'll be honest, it's not going to be Joshua Dobbs because he looks like from that first preseason game, but that's just me saying. But you guys don't care about Joshua Dobbs. You guys care about the Trojans. Just want to throw Sam Darnold out there because he is in the NFL. He is in New York on the East Coast.
He's a stud, and he'll be starting before you know it.
Which is funny because Mark and I, in June, said that he'll be the starter, and Jet fans were like, "No, he won't. Josh McCown will," and he's gonna be the starter.
Well, so Rick, you can't get too mad at those Jets fans. They've had a lot of really bad things happen to them lately, so it's really it's kind of hurt their inner psyche. Yes, it's tough.
But that's the big thing for USC. They will be without Sam Darnold this year, and they've got a big decision to make at quarterback. I'm looking at an article here from ESPN. This is from a few weeks ago when camp started, and they're saying that the freshman quarterback JT Daniels is really showing his mark on this team after day one of camp. And the thing I was telling you is when Dave and I were in California for VidCon, we had an amazing Uber driver that ended our stay in. All of our Uber drivers in California were great. We had 3 of them. We had someone who drove us from the airport to the hotel, someone who drove us to the Angels game, and then another Uber driver, a guy who drove us from the hotel to the airport. And the thing I noticed about him when he got out of the car, he was decked out in USC from head to toe, Brandon. He had a gray USC shirt on. It was a gray shirt with the USC logo in the middle. He had red shorts on, which on the left leg had the USC logo, and he had kind of like beach sandals, not like the flip-flops that I have on that have the thing that goes in between the toes, but the one that's just the band over the top of the feet. USC sandals. Or no, they weren't sandals. They were USC red and yellow gym shoes. But they were USC gym shoes.
How do you get sandals and gym shoes
I thought they were sandals, but then in my head they were gym shoes.
Maybe something's wrong with your psyche,
They were gym shoes. Maybe, but that's a conversation for a different podcast.
Yeah, it is.
He was decked out USC from head to toe. And we're talking a little bit, and I just, out of the blue, I'm like, "So you a big USC fan?" Come on.
Gave it away.
I mean, I'm trying to make conversation. This guy went off where basically he was talking about the quarterbacks. And the thing I can't remember, and USC fans are going to have to help me, I'm pretty sure he was talking about JT Daniels, but it could be Jack Sears. I'm pretty sure it's JT Daniels, where basically he's like, "We got this freshman coming in. He's from here. He's from," I think it was Mater D or something like that. But he's like, "We got this freshman coming in. He's going to be as good as Sam Darnold was." And I was like, I said to Dave as we were in the airport waiting the 7 hours on our layoff, I was like, "You know what? I'm going to say that on the USC preview, that we got some insider information from an LA native or an Anaheim native that's a true USC fan. So what I'm going to ask you right now, there's kind of three. There's JT Daniels, who right now is kind of turning some heads at camp. There's Matt Fink, who is the redshirt sophomore on this team. And then there is Jack Sears, which is the redshirt freshman. Actually, you know what? I answered my own question. It was JT Daniels, because JT Daniels is the only true freshman on this team. So that's the guy that he was talking about, where Matt Fink is the guy he mentioned from Rancho Cucamonga, and then Sears is the redshirt freshman. So I'm going to ask you, where do the Trojans go now that Sam Darnold is gone? What's going to happen? Because this is the most important hole that the Trojans need to fill, that Clay Helton needs to fill on this team.
Well, the Trojans lost Sam Darnold, Ronald Jones, and Deontay Burnett.
Yeah.
Their quarterback, their top running back, their top receiver in the same year. Graduation said, "Get effed, USC."
Ronald Jones, I think, is with Tampa Bay now.
He is. And so here's the thing, is that so Matt Fink is the guy who has seen some college games, but it's been in a backup role. It's been in a backup role. You get in at the very end when the game is out of hand. It's in hand. It's when you're not having to make any plays, and that's why I don't get to, oh well, Matt Fink should start because he's seen college games. Well, whatever. He's seen it from a different perspective. He hasn't seen it from the starter perspective.
Yeah.
And I think that you've got JT Daniels coming in as a very strong passer, as a guy who is coming in as a Gatorade National Player of the Year. That says something. If you're coming in as the Gatorade National Player of the Year, there's something you've obviously done right. And that's why I don't think it would be too crazy to go with JT Daniels. And then, of course, you've got Jack Sears, who actually succeeded Darnold when he was at San Clemente High School. But I still think the guy that is intriguing me the most is JT Daniels. And when you said that your Uber driver said this guy's going to be the next Sam Darnold or so similar to Sam Darnold, he very well could be similar to what Sam Darnold is. Maybe not the next Sam Darnold, but very similar to what Darnold was able to do in college.
Well, the reason why I say that is another thing we mentioned at the beginning of this preview. We're kind of Quentin Tarantinoing it and going back to the beginning. When we were talking about Colorado, I had mentioned how this year might be like 2016 in a way, just because USC, we don't know who their starting quarterback is going to be. And they got to figure it out quick in my mind. And I feel like this could be the year where they Max Brown it. And what I'm saying is, Fink gets the start. The only thing is you're not playing Alabama week 1. You get pretty much a cupcake week 1 with the Runnin' Rebels from UNLV. But then you got some tough home games. You're at Stanford. You're at Texas. So
those are not home games.
Well, road games. That's what I meant to say. You got some tough road games at Stanford, at Texas. I wouldn't be surprised if this was kind of like, it was similar to 2016 where Fink gets to start, kind of stumbles in the first 2-3 games. JT Daniels or Jack Sears are thrown in there. I would go with Daniels. Daniels is thrown in, and boom, he's Sam Darnold, where he takes over the rest of the year. They're fine. And then next year, we're talking about JT Daniels, the head of this Trojan team, and what great things they are going to do, a la Sam Darnold last year.
What has some concern for me is their offensive line. While they're returning 4 of 5 starters, they allowed 30 sacks last season. That was up from 12 that they allowed in 2016. They allowed 18 more sacks this past year. That's not something that I look at and go, pretty comfortable with that. No, not at all. And especially for this quarterback. I mean, we saw things from Sam Darnold last year, especially early on in the season, that we're looking at him and going, what's going on? We expected him to be exactly like he was in the Penn State Rose Bowl from a year before. He was not. He was a little erratic. He was throwing interceptions at a high rate. But now you have to look and really be like, And even at the time then, too, we said, is it all Darnold? Or is that offensive line doing him no favors?
Yeah.
And I think a good part of that was that offensive line was doing him no favors. He was feeling rushed. He was feeling the pressure. And if that's how it happens again this year, that's going to be a really, really tough spot that they're going to be putting what most likely will be, either way, whether it's Fink, whether it's Daniels, whoever it is, it's going to be a first-time starting quarterback in college in a really rough spot. And then Ronald Jones is gone. You still have 3 running backs that you can use. All have different, bring different things to the table, speed, elusiveness. Is that going to help them at all?
Yeah.
Are you going to be able to create holes for them? Obviously, they have to do some of their own creating as well, but that's where I'm looking at and circling that offensive line as what are they going to be able to do this season?
Well, and the thing I'm looking at is one of the, and I'll give them a plug because they do great work, but the website Reign of Troy, which is great for all USC stuff, there's an article I'm reading where they're kind of grading the quarterbacks after week 1 at camp, and the grades that they have, this article written by one of their staff writers, Alicia, and this is kind of the, just to put into your mind what USC fans might be thinking right now. Matt Fink, the grade they gave him after week 1, a C. The grade that they gave Jack Sears after week 1, a B+. The grade they gave to JT Daniels, an A-. So, I mean, you're looking right now, and it's, to me, that might be where the pecking order is, where it's JT Daniels is the leader, Jack Sears is in second place, Fink's got a lot of work to do. And I mean, for me, I think that I'm going to go back to this. I know you were talking offensive line. Yeah, they lose Ronald Jones, which are big losses as well. To me, the most important one, and this goes for any football team, is that quarterback battle. You got to get that quarterback right in order to make everything else flow for your team.
Yeah, you definitely do. I mean, we see that time and time again, especially in college. That is so extremely important. And if you've got a good quarterback leader, everything else can really kind of that sets the table for everything else in the running game. And then what your wide receivers are able to do. Because if you've got a good quarterback, if you've got a good leader, you're going to be able to develop a rapport with them that's going to be strong, and that's going to help those wide receivers to develop and what they're able to do. I want to look on the defensive side here, Ricky. This team a year ago tied Clemson for the most sacks in the nation with 46. They look poised to be able to do that again. But what they did last season is they allowed too many big home run plays to opposing teams and opposing offenses. Can they get that corrected this year? Do you think this defense improves in 2018?
You know, it's interesting because, I mean, to me, the thing I am looking at the most is when I was doing my full mock draft for the NFL, I was looking like, man, Rasheem Green, yeah, he's going to be a great guy in the NFL. And then I'm looking, I'm like, man, Uchenna, Nwosu, thank you for that. I'm looking at those and like at the time it's like, ooh, where am I going to fit them? Now I'm looking like, man, I wish those Trojan fans are probably like, man, I wish they were back on our team. They would be a huge help. To me, it's going to be more of a, can it be a Baltimore Raven to infuse another NFLism into this podcast? Can you be the Baltimore Ravens and basically next man up? Can this team, next man up on defense, fill those holes and become better than what they were last year? That's the thing I look at for this team, because out of every team we've talked about on this preview, this is the team that is probably the most consistent when it comes to they're not changing a scheme, they're not changing a coach, everything's staying the same. It's just a matter of, all right, guys left, new guys come in. Can the new guys make up for the guys that had left and are now in the NFL or had graduated?
And that's always what it's going to be. That's always what it's going to be. And I think
But hey, the great teams like Alabama, the great teams like Clemson, they just reload. And for USC, if you want to be like one of those teams, Clay Helton, you just got to reload. And that's what we got to see from the Trojans this year. They just got to reload and go at it again.
And they really need to focus on their pass defense. They really do. They were ranked 82nd in the FBS in pass defense last season. And like I said, they just gave up way too many home run plays to opposing offenses. Let's get back to the schedule.
Okay.
Let's get back to the schedule.
Works
because for USC, while I think a lot of people believe them to be back atop the Pac-12 South, as do I, I think that it's going to be a tough schedule, and if they get back to the top,
especially to start,
they're gonna earn it. They're gonna earn getting back to the top. Is what I'm trying to say, because you have UNLV to start. Yes, that should be a win, but then you have on the road at Stanford, like you mentioned, on the road at Texas, at home versus Washington State, and then on the road at Arizona. That is a very tough September. That's a very tough September because of where you're playing and then kind of who you're playing as well. Because you look at how the Texas game went last season. That was a game.
Yep.
That was a game that USC and Texas played last year.
Who won them that game? Who won them that game? Who won the game for the Trojans last year? Who's now in New York playing for the Jets? Sam Darnold. Just throwing it and that's the thing with this year where I know a lot of fans in the comment section are gonna say, "We're not losing to them. We beat them last year." You had Sam Darnold last year. Like that to me is, can one of these, going back to what I said, not now on the offensive side, whatever quarterback you go with, even if it's JT Daniels, can he step up and be as good, better, half as good as what Darnold was last year? Because Darnold was special. There's a reason why many people had him number 1 overall. There's a reason why he was the second quarterback off the board in the NFL draft. There's a reason why many people are still having the debate that did the Giants lose the draft compared to the Jets because they went with Barkley and didn't go with get the quarterback in Darnold. This Stanford, Texas, you played them at home last year, both of them. Now they're on the road. I could see those two games flipping from wins to losses, mainly because of everything we talked about. But like you say, big plays, you know who's just going to be hitting dingers in that second game is Bryce Love. I could see Bryce Love blowing off for some big plays against USC if they don't fix what they were a huge problem at last year, or what was a huge problem last year.
And then you look at a Washington State team that was pretty good last year. They were 9-4. You get them at home. Then you go on the road at Arizona, and you'll be taking on a very good quarterback and offense there. And new head coach Kevin Sumlin, we talked about him earlier. We think that it'll probably go with more of a balanced attack, but still, that Arizona offense could be lethal, and it'll be interesting to see what they do. Colorado should be a win on the road at Utah. A team that's going to be much improved. ASU, I think that's a win. You may disagree with me. On the road at Oregon State, you win that one. I think you beat Cal. I think you beat little brother UCLA, even at UCLA. And then to end the season, this is an interesting game to end the season because I like Notre Dame this year. I think that they're going to be a good team. USC, I think they're going to be a good team too. But at the end of the season, who is going to be the better team there? That is not a game I want. If I'm USC, that's not a game I want to end the season, because depending on what you do, and personally, in my opinion, kind of what Utah is doing throughout the year, because I think Utah could, like I said, end either 2 or 3 during the Utah preview. I said that they could probably end either 2 or 3 in the South. What do they do? Does USC trip up one too many times maybe, and they can't afford to lose that Notre Dame game at the end? So that is a dangerous game scheduled at the end of the season. I love it. I think it's great. It's ballsy. I really enjoy that very much. But I think that is a tough game to have to end the season. Well, it's at home, but still.
And you and Sean are going to be wearing your Irish green that weekend with you guys being the ND fans in the office. You guys are going to be... Sean, I know, hates USC. Absolutely hates them. So, I mean, he'll be wearing his Fighting Irish gear all around the MVP studios. But I look at it, and Notre Dame did get the best of USC last year, but basically since 2014, it's been on-off. USC, Notre Dame, USC, Notre Dame. If history repeats itself, USC's getting the win this year. So that's if we go off of that. I mean, Notre Dame did have that huge losing streak, though, from, 2002 all the way to 2010 was the last time they won. So it should be an interesting game, especially with how ND has been in recent years, I'll say.
For Notre Dame, I think it's just going to be their defense. Mm-hmm. Their offense, I think, will have plenty of firepower. They've got to be able to kind of retool a little bit on defense and shore some things up. But I think we're looking at a good matchup there at the end of the season. But USC, what do you think, Ricky?
Here's what I'm thinking. I see 2 losses being to Stanford and Texas, maybe a third loss to UCLA. And that maybe third loss is if they get upset by a Chip Kelly team that's kind of feeling it at the end of the year. You can never count out UCLA against Southern Cal, and you can't say like, oh, UCLA is going to blow them out. You can't say, oh, SC is going to blow them out. Anything can happen in that rivalry game. Anything. A blowout, close game, upset. So that's why that game, I think, is going to be interesting to where I think that this team is going to, like, even if JT Daniels starts, I'm not going to have the most confidence in him because he is a rookie. He's a true freshman coming out of high school. The good thing is you get that buffer of UNLV there, but I still think Bryce Love is going to be really hard to handle. And I know that USC fans are going to say, but Ricky, they had Bryce Love last year. You had Sam Darnold. Get that through your head. Not everyone's going to be like that, but I feel like I'm preemptively assuming there's going to be comments being like, but we beat him last year. You had Sam Darnold. Same with Texas. But we beat him last year. A, it's on the road. Same thing with Stanford. B, you had Sam Darnold. You almost lost that game. Sam Darnold won you that game. He's now wearing green and white for the New York Jets. The rest of them I really don't have that big of an issue with. Like Washington State, we'll get into it next week, but my biggest question for them is what are they going to be like without their senior leader? They had a really good quarterback. I loved Luke Falk last year for that team. Arizona is going to be good, but I would still pick USC over them, especially with Kevin Sumlin's first year. Plus, we know how Kevin Sumlin, unless Khalil Tate becomes his Johnny Manziel, we know what happens in big games for Kevin Sumlin. Colorado, I'm not afraid of. Utah, it's at Utah, but I'll still give it to the Trojans. Arizona State's going to be, that defense is going to be in flux this year. Oregon State's an easy win. Cal's an easy win. UCLA is a question mark, and then I'm going to go with the flip. I'm going to say that they trade off and SC gets the win against Notre Dame. So probably 2 losses for sure, which will be enough to win the Pac-12 South because they'll only have 1 conference loss, which will be to Stanford. Won't be in the playoff discussion because even if they win the Pac-12, they won't have enough firepower to get into that playoff, but they could probably play spoiler to Washington, who will most likely win the North.
I just want to say, first of all, Clay Helton has said that age and experience won't matter when it comes to naming a starting quarterback.
So that means it's going to be JT Daniels. I'm
just
throwing that out there.
I think that definitely gives him some upside in terms of the quarterback battle. And I think USC goes 10-2. I think their losses are both outside of the conference. They do not lose a conference game. They lose on the road at Texas, and they lose at home versus Notre Dame to end the season.
So, I mean, that means there's no playoff for them, but at least they go undefeated in conference and will maybe be able to fight for that Pac-12 title crown, which would be interesting because if that happens and they got 2 losses outside of conference and they win the Pac-12, that might mean, depending on how everything goes, that the playoff would be an ACC team, an SEC team, a Big Ten team, and then either a Big 12 team or another SEC team, or take a Big 12 team and take the Big Ten and say Big Ten or SEC, that the Pac-12 would be left out of the playoff again.
And I was just going to say, I think yet again the Pac-12 is going to be left out of the playoff.
A little bit of a spoiler. We'll get to that in 2 weeks, Brandon. A little bit of a spoiler there.
Oh my gosh, anyone who's ever been watching us knows that I think that the Pac-12 is going to be left out of the playoff. There's no team right now that is jumping out and saying, look at me, we're going to be really good this season, and that we're going to be so good where we should be worthy of a playoff spot. I just don't see that on either side. So yeah, I guess a little bit of a spoiler, but I'll say it again next week because it feels so good to say. I just think that
you really have a problem with the Pac-12.
I've got no problem with the Pac-12. I just think that they are the weaker conference. But let me tell you, they definitely have some up and coming teams. I think that USC is going to be there. Not this year, next year could look pretty good. I could be completely wrong, and they could be there this year and whatever. But I think that JT Daniels, if JT Daniels is able to, who we both believe is going to be the starting quarterback, if he's able to guide them to a 10-2 record this year, without a doubt, he should be able to get them into the playoff conversation next season. And then this guy again is a true freshman, and if he stays all 4 years or even 3 of the 4 years, there you go. You have 3 opportunities to get there. And I think that in one of those, you'd like to think that you can. So USC, I really like where USC it continues to go. And I'm excited for what they'll do this year.
Well, that's going to do it. USC fans, let us know what you think down below in the comment section. What do you think about your team this year? Who should be the quarterback? What games are you afraid of? What games aren't you afraid of? Knowing you guys, perfect season, right? You guys aren't afraid of any games. You're not eating that chicken like Jim Harbaugh has told us not to eat. But last thing we'll do, a little bit of housekeeping here at the end. Number 1, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. If you want to come on a podcast and tell us how we're right, how we're wrong, want to talk about what you want to talk about, make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluablepodcast. You can also get an MVP t-shirt. Neither of us are wearing it this week. Maybe I'll wear it next week. Who knows? But you can also get that in the description. Dave is showing it off on our MVP store. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com, where you can also catch MVP each and every day. And then last but not least, if you're on Apple Podcast or iTunes, I'm going to do, I don't have my phone. Do you have iTunes on your phone or Apple Podcast on your phone?
I've got iTunes, but I don't have Apple Podcasts.
I was going to look it up, but my phone's over there. Usually at the end of these podcasts, I look up to see if anyone has rated it, but this is where I'll just throw it out there. 5-star rating if you want to. Give us that 5 stars. Let us know why you like listening to the podcast, because apparently, and I'm saying it again, we are not a couple of good old boys. We talk about more than the SEC. People need to know these things, and they're not going to know these things unless you guys tell them that we're not a couple of good old boys, because it's all they can see right now. But I want to thank you guys for watching on YouTube. I want to thank you guys for listening on podcast services around the world. We will be back next week finishing our previews with the Pac-12 North, and then the week after that, it is time for college playoff predictions. We're going to do our first big board, the preseason big board, and then it's time for football. College football is back, just 2 weeks away. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening, and as always, have a good day, everybody.